Good morning. I hope that your Wednesday is off to a good start. Mine is so far. Really nice weather, isn't it? I'm glad you're taking a few minutes out of your Wednesday morning to spend with me. That cat can't make up which side of the door she wants to be on. But anyway, I'm glad you're going to spend a few minutes of your Wednesday morning with me. And I started this a couple of weeks ago, taking a look at major world religions. I spent a couple of weeks on Judaism, switched off for something else last week, and I'm coming back to this idea of major world religions again today. And for today, the other, besides Christianity and Judaism, the other major monotheistic world religion, and that would be, of course, Islam. Islam is the second largest religion in the world today. There are more Christians than Muslims in the world. I think that there's roughly 2.3 billion Christians, I guess depending upon how you count it, and some 2 billion Muslims, if the stats that I saw are correct. Islam is the fastest growing religion, but it's not the largest right now. I should have mentioned this a couple of weeks ago when I was discussing Judaism. Judaism, compared to Christianity and Islam, is actually very, very small. There are only like 15.8 million Jews in the world. And of that number, over half of them are in the U.S. There's about 8.5 million Jews in the U.S. U.S. population of Israel is 7.3 million. So in terms of sheer numbers, the vast majority of monotheists in the world are either Christians or Muslims. So, Islam. It's a topic we hear about all the time. You watch the news and you see this country, this Islamic country, that Islamic country. So let's take a look at it. So the origins of Islam go back to Muhammad. He is the major prophet in Islam. He lived from 570 to 632. He is born in the city of Mecca. And to this day, Mecca in Saudi Arabia is the most holy city in Islam. His father died not long after he was born. His mother died when he was 6, and so he was raised by a grandfather. And Muhammad reported a series of visitations from the angel Gabriel. And Gabriel gave him a set of messages. Over these several visits, Gabriel gave him a long series of messages, and they became the core of Muhammad's teachings. He began talking about them and developed some followers. Most of the people in Mecca at the time were very polytheistic, and so Muhammad's words weren't well received, and they drove him out. He went to Medina, ended up going to Medina, and amassed something of a following, and returned to Mecca later on in his life, and at the head of like 10,000 armed men, and he took Mecca, but without ever actually with like virtually no bloodshed. The core of Muhammad's teachings are recorded in the Quran, which is the holy book, the scriptures for Islam. The Quran, you spell that multiple different ways, sometimes Quran or sometimes Koran. I suppose Quran is the more correct way to do it. but that is the Islamic holy book. One major misconception is that all Muslims are Arabs, or conversely, that all Arabs are Muslims. It's not really the case. The the largest Arab country in the world is Indonesia. Um, Indonesia. There, and amongst Arabs, there are a small number of Arabs that are Christians, a small number of Arabs that are Jews. So, what are the key tenets of Islam? Islam is centered around 5 core principles, 5 core tenets. And the first, there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. And Allah is simply an Arabic word for God, sort of the Arabic equivalent to El or Elohim in Hebrew. You pray 5 times a day. At dawn, meaning like first light, early afternoon, late afternoon, evening, and then nighttime. And there are exact times when these prayers are supposed to be offered. And I remember when I was in Israel 5 years ago, early 2020. Depending upon where you were, you could hear the imams calling people to prayer. Particularly, you heard it early in the morning, like at 5:30, 5:45. But 5 core tenets. First, there is no God but Allah. Muhammad is his prophet. You pray 5 times a day. And charitable giving. It is expected that all Muslims will give to charities. They are to fast during the month of Ramadan. It is a lunar month, and that roughly coincides with the month of February, and this is a fast from sunrise to sunset. And lastly, they are to make a pilgrimage to Mecca at least once in your life. At least once in your life. If you are able, you're supposed to make a pilgrimage to Mecca. The goal for Islam is to be at peace with God. And this is done through surrendering oneself entirely to the will of Allah. Now so the goal is to be at peace with God. Some other things to mention. Islam claims that all of the other world religions sort of point towards it. And if you look at websites done by Islamic bodies, Islamic groups, and they will cite portions of the Old Testament, New Testament, Hindu writings that they say point towards Islam. The term Muslim simply means one who has surrendered to Allah. Muslims claim that all of the major figures of the Bible are prophets. So Muslims will look back to Abraham, Moses, the other prophets of the Old Testament, John the Baptist, Jesus, as being prophets. They look at all of these figures from our scriptures as being prophets, but that Muhammad is the chief prophet. Muhammad was descended from Ishmael. So as Ishmael, Abraham's firstborn, Israel, Israel, as in Judaism, is descended from Isaac. Muhammad claimed to trace his lineage back to Ishmael, but even Isaac and Jacob were considered to be prophets as well. You hear sometimes today, if you're watching the news and they're talking about Muslims, some mention of Sunni Muslims, Shiite Muslims. Those are the two major factions. They're not the only two factions in Islam, but they're the two major factions. And without getting way deep into the weeds, there was a power struggle after Muhammad's death. Like, who represented the true Islam after Muhammad died? And the division now between Sunni and Shia Muslims goes all the way back to Muhammad's death. The Sunni faction of Islam is the largest. They are the larger of the two. The Shiite Muslims are primarily found in Iran and Iraq, but Sunni Muslims they're the majority. So how do they view eternal life? And this is what I'm going to give you, is what I found on a Islamic organization's website. So this is what they would say: that upon death, the soul is taken to an intermediate state until Judgment Day. And on Judgment Day, there's a resurrection of the dead, and they are judged based on the works of this life. And Islam views this life essentially as being a test. And on Judgment Day, you are judged according to your works. And after that, there's either paradise or hell, which they both take to be permanent, eternal states. So one last thing, which Christians sometimes ask. So do Muslims worship the same God as Christians and Jews? They would say that they do. Muslims say that they worship the same God as Christians and Jews. Do they in fact worship the same God as Christians and Jews? I would say that's debatable. Probably a better way to put it is this: that they, from my vantage point, they don't worship God correctly. From my vantage point, and as a Christian, that's what I want to say. And of course, a Muslim would say the same about me, and that's okay. From a Christian standpoint, whether or not they worship the same God as us is, to my mind, a little immaterial. If they do, they don't worship Him correctly, because worship of God is in and through the person of Jesus Christ. So that's how we as Christians look at it. Anyway, I hope that this has been helpful for you. Next time you hear a newscast talking about Islam's, or you read stuff on the internet, I've tried to be as even-handed as I can, and I hope you have a rest of your Wednesday. And if you're in Hamlet and need a good place to come to church, come see me at either First or Fellowship United Methodist churches. Have a great day.